One thing I don't think we hear enough is that after Rosenbaum was shot, in 0.739 of a second, he got hit. He was shot 4 times. Richie McGinnis did not run with the crowd. He didn't scream. He didn't hit the ground. Why? He had no fear that Kyle Rittenhouse would cause him any harm. Or I shouldn't say that. His fear did not reach a level to where he thought he should flee at all. Maybe he was like, there's some issue, but I genuinely believe Richie ran up to Rosenbaum and acted like Kyle wasn't even there. Because he knew, in my opinion, I haven't talked to him about it, he knew that Kyle wasn't a threat to him at all. I think that's the most important point. The second most important point. In this trial, when they were watching a video, the judge walks over to the big screen TV and sits down and watches the video. Kyle Rittenhouse walks up right behind the judge and leans in right over his left shoulder. No bailiff, no handcuffs, no complaints, no one freaking out. No one was threatened by this kid. Not a single person, because they know he was only a threat to those attacking him. And lastly, all of you agree with me, and I know it. If ADA Binger was on the ground in Kenosha during a riot and he saw Kyle Rittenhouse, he would run to him for safety.
Yes. Yep.
Well, let me tell you something. When I was there that night, right, and I testified under oath, so I feel comfortable saying it again because it's true. When I was there that night, the first time I saw Kyle that night, they were in front of they call it Car Source 2, right, the second car dealership, right? There were individuals on the roof. They had rifles on the roof, right? And one of them was outside on the ground as well. And this was after the rioters were going head-to-head with the police, and the police were pushing them down Sheridan, pushing them. They were deploying rubber bullets. They were rioting. They were taking concrete slabs and destroying them on the floor and throwing them at the cops, taking fireworks, explosive devices, throwing them at the police vehicles. So as they were getting pushed back when they got to Car Source 2, these guys on the building had their rifles. The rioters came to them. They're like, "You ain't the police. You ain't the police. You ain't the cops. You ain't the," like, getting super confrontational to the point where the rioters went behind Car Source 2, grabbed more rocks, more concrete slabs, and were throwing them at the individuals with rifles on the top of the building. They brought a rock to a gunfight, okay? So the reason why this is important is the first time I saw Kyle was when he came outside of this Car Source 2 and attempted to de-escalate that situation. And you know what? He had his hands like he was, he was going like kind of like when you're saying, "Hey, like calm down," like what instead of saying the word calm down, what do? You use your hands.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. And then the rioters dispersed because they were getting super confrontational, like, "You ain't the cops, you ain't the police, you ain't the police." And then they dispersed.
See, that's the crazy thing. I've been to a bunch of events. We had who was it who tweeted today that white supremacists in Ferguson? Do you see that? I can't remember who it was.
No.
I don't want to say the wrong person, but someone tweeted. Did you see that, Drew?
Nope.
They were like, when we were marching in Ferguson, white supremacists were hiding by the hill where Michael Brown was shot, and they were shooting at us. And I'm like, I've been there and nothing like that happened. At least nobody said it happened. I didn't experience anything like that. No one I know said anything like that happened. Not a single activist reported anything like that until today. But the reason I bring that up is I'm on the ground in Ferguson. I watched the Oath Keepers. I filmed the Oath Keepers up on top of the building, standing there with weapons. Then it was I can't remember the guy's name. What's his name? It's been a long time. The group comes down and they start marching down.
Stewart?
It wasn't Stewart.
Okay.
They start walking down the road with rifles, and people are yelling at him just like that. "You ain't the police. You're not the cops." And the dude, I can't remember his name, who's in the front, he's like, a leader in the Oath Keepers. He goes, we know, we're just here for everyone's safety. And they were like, "Then why aren't you here protecting us?" And he goes, "We are." And they're like, what? And he's like, "Yeah, we want to make sure the police don't hurt any of you guys." And they went,
Oh.
"What?" I watched him say it. He was like, "We're here. Like, the cops shouldn't hurt any of you guys. You guys keep protesting, do your thing, and we want to make sure that everyone's safe." And they were like, "What?"
The thing about Kenosha was it wasn't a protest. At no point was it a protest. I mean, I was in Chicago the night Jacob Blake got shot, right? And I was looking on Twitter, and the first thing I saw, literally one of the first reports I saw, what was happening in Kenosha, was the rioters were already took a brick to a police officer's head, knocked him unconscious. And then I started to see other reports, and I'm thinking to myself, how far is Kenosha? Whoa, it's like hour and a half, 2 hour drive. It was like a $300 Uber, right?
I don't even think that's far. I think it's like an hour from Chicago.
I don't remember. It was far, and it was during the lockdown in Chicago at 11 p.m. at night. I don't even know how I got an Uber, but I took it, went there, and right when I showed up, they already had dumpster trucks on fire, exploding. They were looting. They were
dumpster carts, like
trucks. A dumpster
trucks.
A truck. It's on my Twitter. Anyone can go watch it right now. Drew H Live. That's one of the
certainly
first
don't
things.
mean a full vehicle.
No, the full truck, dumpster truck on fire. And the ones who brought rifles to the Kenosha riot first was actually the rioters. I retweeted that today. They were there night one, and they were in a standoff with the police in the middle of the street, and they had their rifles. They were the ones who brought guns first. That's a fact.
I watched that video where it was like a mattress store or something, where it was being burned down. You see the smoke billowing out of the building. Do you see that video?
It's where, I don't know, I have to look at it because there's so many burnt buildings in Kenosha.
Right. It's where the old guy is running up and like trying to get people. It's his store, and then someone bashes him over the back of the head with a rock, and then he just falls down and he's lying on the ground bleeding, and they're all like laughing and hooting at him.
I have to look at that one. But that night was a mixture of arson, looting, vandalism, total violence. They burnt down multiple buildings, and that's why when you hear the mainstream media, this is why they'll come out and say, "Oh, you're just biased." And they were chanting Black Lives Matter when they did it. Okay,
right.
It's all on film, and I posted it. That's not bias. That's just the truth.
I was in San Jose when it was that moment where the guy got hit in the back of the head with rocks during the Trump rally, and I tweeted out it was Bernie Sanders supporters who did it. There was that big moment where they were like, Bernie supporters, Bernie bros are violent, Bernie supporters are violent, and Bernie was like, you guys gotta knock it off. And I tweeted like, yeah, those guys were Bernie supporters, and they were like, you're a liar and you're far right. And I was like, but that's what happened. And they're like, how do you know they were Bernie supporters? They were wearing Bernie shirts. What? Like they were like wearing Bernie. Like a couple of the people who were part of the mob had Bernie stickers and stuff on them, and they were screaming and shoving people. And I'm like, that's just what I don't know. I didn't think it was that big of a deal to be like, oh yeah, this was the left that was engaged in this behavior. At the time, I genuinely thought, because I've seen the black bloc tactics, they're proud of what they call the diversity of tactics. I didn't understand why they would all of a sudden now deny the fact that they beat people all the time. They were proud of it. Luke, I mean, knows it. Luke was there when I got attacked in New York.
Yeah.
And Luke pulls the guy's mask off.
Yeah. Well, me and my friends jumped and made sure that, we prevented further escalations. And you could just see a lot of these actions unfold right before they unfold with how people are preparing for it. But again, when we look at what happened last year during the summer, we're talking about over 3 dozen people dying. So people were affected, people did die, people were hurt, people were injured, but there were several accounts of this, but the mainstream media picked this particular case, they highlighted it. There was a lot of tragedies out there. There's a lot of responsibility out there that you could point to so many different people. I would directly point at big tech social media. I would directly point at the mainstream media that was censoring any opposing viewpoints, promoting, obfuscating, or even just sometimes making excuses for violence. And I think that was deliberate, and I think we're having that same kind of element being brought back. Now, it is during the winter. Will we see large civil unrest? We don't know. The National Guard is being deployed in Wisconsin. We have the NYPD, Chicago PD, LAPD, Seattle PD, Washington PD, all
National
mobilizing.
Guard.
Yeah, 500 National Guards, all mobilizing their police officers because they're preparing for something.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Why are 500 National Guard called out to Kenosha tonight if this whole thing started as a peaceful protest?
Why?
This is why I'm so aggressive, Tim, because they're trying to lie. They're trying to cover for these violent criminals that literally showed up to literally burn down buildings, threaten the community. Kenosha was literally having a massive threat that night, and this is so underplayed because they want to cover for these people and make them look like little saints, that they're just opposing racism. They weren't. And what happened to Kenosha had nothing to do with Jacob Blake being shot.
And you're biased for talking about what you saw and what you filmed that we all plainly understood. And I want to stress a very important point when they criticize your bias. You actually testified that you had concerns about the guys with guns as well.
Yep.
The prosecutor was like, you held up your press badge when they were pointing a laser pointer at you because you were concerned for your safety. And you were like, well, I'm always concerned for my safety. But he was like, but you were worried they might have a gun on you? Yes. You said yes to that, right?
This is why. I was trying to explain context in that situation. That situation I just explained to you where I saw Kyle come out and attempt to de-escalate a situation, that was the same building that the rioters were taking rocks and throwing them at individuals with rifles on top of the building. But I was sitting there filming it. So the reason why I said, of course, I'm in kind of concerned about my life because I don't want to be misidentified with these morons throwing rocks at people with guns.
Absolutely. No, but I think the important point here is that I'm trying to make is there's two things. One, I think it's fair to say I can't speak for you, but I've been on the ground. I absolutely fear the rioters more than I would fear militia members.
Yeah.
Militia members tend to have firearms training. They tend to be more skittish about using force or weapons. And this is true of the left militias as well. When I would see the armed socialist groups, like the Socialist Rifle Association or whatever they call themselves, I would feel safer around them as well because they take it very, very seriously. But that being said, when you testified, you did have some concerns about both sides, right? He has the nerve to call you biased, but then accuse you of fearing both the rioters and the armed gunmen. I'm like, how can the lawyer come to you and say, the prosecutor, I'm sorry, you're biased against those people, and you are also scared about the guys with guns? It's like, so which is it? Who's he biased against? If he's got concern for his safety across the board, it sounds like he's mostly concerned for himself and not who's doing what, but that's it. You film the rioters rioting and say they're rioters. He literally called you biased for saying they were rioters.
He said your footage seems slanted towards the rioters, and I responded and said, yeah, because they're rioting in the footage, absolutely. Like, it doesn't make any sense, and that's why I'm watching the trial, and I'm like, dude, you're what he's doing is he's insulting the intellect and the judgment ability of the jurors.
Yeah.
Because you see this back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, you see this back and forth where I'll use myself as an example. Today, he literally praised me for being a veteran reporter, trying to add credibility to me when it fit his little narrative. And then at the end, they literally try to discredit me again at the end of their closing argument. That just, to me, if I was a juror, that would insult me completely. Like, so you think I'm that dumb that I even pick up on it?
He did it on multiple occasions. One of the biggest ones was him describing the activities of Rosenbaum and acted like it wasn't a big deal when he went over everything that he did.
I'll pull that up in a second.
I don't know if we can play that.
Including the N-word.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny, though? Isn't it? Is like, listen, he's like, oh, he uses the N-word. So
wait. I want to play the video in a second. I want to play the video in a second.
It's
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
It's
wild. Did you want to point out anything?
No. That he contradicted himself when he was questioning you, Drew, and then with his closing arguments, he literally said the opposite of what he was saying to you. So that's a major point here.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.